Hey there, welcome to Rough Rants, where we talk about, basically whatever we want to talk about in a very not smooth format. I am Preston, and today I'm going to be talking about Star Trek Enterprise. Yeah, I'm not a Star Trek fan, like at all. Just keep that in mind. I've never really seen any. I've seen a couple episodes here and there of each different season. And I was just decided that I was going to try one out and go in completely blind, more or less, and just see how it goes and see if I have any fun with it. And I ended up picking Star Trek Enterprise mainly because I have heard nothing about it other than it exists, and that's about it. I know that not a lot of people liked it. And yeah, no, that's about all I know about it. So I decided to pick this one for that reason. And also because it's the season that has the least amount of episodes. So yeah, you can see where my priorities lay. But yeah, we're going to go through each episode and talk about them, just kind of rant about them, just give a general idea of how I felt about it, and just have a little bit of fun with it. The first episode is called Broken Bow. It's a 2-part pilot, and the only thing I got really from it was everyone's kind of a dick. That was kind of the underlying message from the get-go. What ends up happening in the very beginning kind of made me laugh. It shows this kid making a model of the soon-to-be spacecraft, I guess, and he's finishing off a quote. He just goes like, "Where no man has gone before," while he's painting it, and his dad walks up and just goes like, "Wow, I'm really impressed that you memorized the entire speech." And I'm like, I mean, it's 4 words, apparently. I mean, can you even call that a speech? I think I would want my money back if I went to that and heard that. Oh, wow, he toured de force with that speech. But yeah, and then instantly after that one scene, it then cuts to 30 years later in a cornfield. And we see a Klingon running from some guys who kind of look like they are made of cream of corn. They are chasing the Klingon, and he runs into a silo. And then it cuts to this farmer who walks out, and he has a gun. But then it turns out that it's not just a gun. It's a phaser gun, but it looks like a shotgun, and that just made me laugh for some reason because it looks exactly like a shotgun, basically. But it has this, like, where you would have like the pump, it has like this little button on it, so he just goes like, "Getting ready." Boop. So that made me laugh. But it shows the Klingon, and he goes into this silo, and he closes the door behind him, and the 2 other aliens follow behind him, and they get to the door, and they're like, they look down, and there's this hole, and the one alien, like, kind of like compresses itself and then slides underneath the door, which was kind of goofy looking, but the first thing that kind of popped up in my head was like, the fact that the opening at the bottom of the door was like 2 feet tall. So like, as a farmer, you have failed because any raccoon or cat or rat is going to get under that in about 10 seconds. I don't even think the alien had to really compress his body. Like, I think I could have gotten underneath that door with my human biology and anatomy. Like, I'm just saying. But they get in there, and then the Klingon jumps out the top of the silo, turns around while they're still in there, and he shoots the silo, and it just blows up, like, spectacularly. Like, it's not even like oh, like a minute, like, no, like, Michael Bay took over for this scene, and it just humongous explosion. And I was just like, I get methane is a thing with like corn silos, but it just seemed like it was a bit much. But so the Klingon then gets up, and the farmer finally makes it over there, and he's like, hey, what you doing on my land? And the Klingon is yelling at him, moving towards him, and the farmer holds up his gun and points it at him, and he proceeds to shoot him. So that happens, and then we get into the opening theme song for Star Trek Enterprise. And I've heard most of the other series openings, and they tend to be more of like orchestrated, orchestral, and like give this sense of like exploration and wonder, and you're just like kind of thing. This one feels more like I'm going to a concert for 40-something-year-olds that are going through a midlife crisis, because it's just kind of hilarious of like the feelings that it invokes, because it is just like a John Mellencamp song, and it's just cheesy. It's just going like, you can't take our freedoms, but we'll always explore the skies. Yeah. It's like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that, every single episode. So after that fantastic opening, we then go into space, and we get our main guy, played by Scott Bakula, who is, I have to write down their names because I'm terrible with names, is Captain Archer. And he's on this little Scooty Puff ship with this other guy, and they're talking about the Enterprise getting like wrapped up, like it's about to be ready to go. And they're talking about like this test drive, and he's like, hey, like there's these spots that have been kind of giving us issues. Make sure you basically buff them out. And the guy flying goes, sure. And he's like writing it down. And he lets go of the controls, and the little Scooty Puff ship hits the ship. Like it just goes brr, brr, like that. And they just kind of like laugh it off. They're like, hey, be careful. And I'm like, he just crashed a ship into your big ship. Like, that's kind of a big deal. Just saying. Like, he could have gotten you killed. Like, that seems like that would be, grounds to dismiss him. But yeah, it's just, it happens. What are you going to do? So then we cut to the Vulcans, and apparently the Vulcans have been around for a while. I think it's been maybe like 100 years. Don't quote me on that. I mean, maybe they'll give us a more definitive timeline in a future episode. But the Vulcans are there, and they're talking about the Klingon they got, and he's like in the hospital, and like they're like in front of this medical suite, like looking through a glass, and they're like, so what's going on? And there's like, the Vulcans are such dicks, like they're condescending dicks, and like I get that's kind of a theme to a degree, but I never got like they were this bad, because the entire time they just treat them like, oh, like the humans, like, oh, look who's trying to be an advanced species. That's so cute. Like, that's kind of the attitude they give, which, kind of goes back to what I said, where, everyone's just kind of a dick. And they're talking, and then Scott Bakula shows up, and he's like, hey, what's going on? And they basically go like, yeah, this farmer shot this Klingon, and we're going to bring his body back. And they're like, wait. And then Scott Bakula, aka Archer, points out, he's like, is he dead? Like, he doesn't look dead from here. And they're like, well, you know, kind of. And then he walks into the surgery suite, or the theater, or however, you know, whatever term you want to call it. But he just walks in there and he goes, you know, is this guy dead, to the doctor? And the doctor goes like, well, no, he's not dead yet. Like, I'm trying not to make him die, but yeah, he's still alive. And I'm just thinking like, well, I mean, you just made that area compromised with your germs. So now he is possibly going to get an infection. So yeah, you might have just killed him, Archer, just saying. But he points out, he's like, why are you killing him? And then it's revealed that the whole Klingons are, oh, you know, warrior race, and dying like this would be shameful, or coming back wounded like that would be shameful. So they rather pull the plug and, you know, all that good stuff. And the Vulcans are like, we're going to take the corpse back to, I think it's Titan. Like, I always thought Vulcans were from Vulcan. Or not Vulcan, sorry. Klingons were from Klingon. I guess not. I guess it's Titan or something like that. But the Vulcans are like, no, we're going to take his body back, and we're going to handle everything. Like, you guys aren't ready to go. And Archer's just like, well, no, we have our ship basically ready to go, and it's going to be ready to go in 3 days. We'll do it. Like, this will be our first outing. And the Vulcans are like, no, these guys are like super dangerous. They're kind of a warrior race. You're lucky they haven't already, you know, sent a bunch of warbirds to kill you, like your entire race. So, like, on the one hand, I understand on both sides, but I'm kind of leaning more towards the Vulcan, because it's like, I get that humanity kind of wants to get out of, you know, the training wheels and be able to go and explore and start diplomatically it up. But maybe, you know, don't start off with the warrior race that will declare war at the drop of a hat because you know, scratched your nose a certain way. But yeah, no, the humans are just like, no, screw you Vulcans. Like, you've helped us get this far, but no, we're going to do this. And so the main Vulcan guy, ambassador guy, gets pissed, which Scott Bakula, or Archer, points out, is like, oh, you've been playing on Earth for a little too long. That's kind of emotional there. But they decide, like, hey, we're going to go ahead with this. And the main general guy goes like, hey, like, your ship will be ready, but you don't have everyone ready to go. And he's like, oh, I got 3 days. I'll do it. So he's like, all right, well, you need a medical officer, and then you also need a communications officer, and you need a science officer. So instantly he looks, like, after the general guy leaves, he turns around and, like, knocks on the window, and he points out to the doctor, who's an alien. Like, I should mention that he is also an alien. I don't know what alien race he is yet. They didn't, like, specifically go, he is this, or if he did, I might have accidentally missed it. But he is an alien. But yeah, he's just like, we're going. Which I just kind of found funny. It's like, you don't even know who he is. Like, what happens if he's kind of a dick, or if he really doesn't know what he's doing? Like, he kind of explains it on the main ship, which I'll get to a little bit later. But it's just kind of, like, I just kind of find that funny, where it's just like, hey, you're a doctor. I need a doctor, so you're my doctor. But they go, and then it cuts to a scene where the one alien race that was hunting the Klingon is, like, in this weird structure, and, like, he goes into this room, and, like, everything is, like, this weird after image effect. Like, I mean, maybe you can kind of see that, which is like whenever he moves, like there's like an after image, and it's like really disorienting. I don't like it. But he's talking to this guy, like, but his face is all like shadowed out, and they're talking about like, did you get the Klingon and all this stuff? And he's like, well, I couldn't find him, blah blah blah. And he's like, well, don't make. He's like, you gotta get him. And I'm just gonna call it now. I'm pretty sure that the shadowy figure guy is probably the main Vulcan ambassador. I'm just gonna say that. I don't know, because again, I'm going in blind, but I just have a feeling it's him. So after that, Archer is still looking for some other crewmates. He ends up going to this like school place where I guess they're learning Vulcan. Like that's the best way I could describe it. I'm pretty sure that's what they were doing, but I also kind of found like the way they were teaching them kind of garbage, because they're just like, repeat after me, and then like they're all saying the words, but they're all saying it simultaneously. So it's just like, you as a teacher, you're not gonna really be able to tell if someone sucks or not. And then Archer walks up to the teacher and is just like, hey, like, I need you for the ship. And she's like, well, I can't because I'm teaching. And if I leave now, it's going to cause a little bit of issues. And he points out, like, can't you just get someone to cover for you? This is kind of a big deal. And she's like, well, yeah, I can do it in 3 weeks, not 3 days. And he gets really pissy, and he's just like, hey, you know, like, I really need you to come, and like I can like pull rank. And she kind of like blasts him back and going like, no, you can't. Like, there's so many other loophole things where it's just basically you're not getting your way. And then he just pulls out this little like recorder thing and is just like, hey, listen to this. And then you hear some Klingon, and she's like, oh, what's this? And she gets this like basically lady boner for linguistics, and she's just like, oh my god, a new language. And he's just like, yeah, like this is a thing that's going to be happening. And I'm just like, that wasn't such a non-conflict. It just seems like you could have easily skipped around that. Like, that didn't seem like a necessary scene. Like, when you just had her be ready to go and then show her or let her listen to the Klingon, and that just kind of motivates her more. Like, wouldn't that make, like, it seemed like a waste of a scene. But we then get to the ship, and they're prepping everything, and like they have like the teleporters ready to go, but they haven't tested it on people. Like, they're just using it for like supplies, and they're like, hey, like, here's some pretty, you know, generic foreshadowing that we're totally gonna use it on a person later on in the episode. Like, but yeah, so they're getting ready, and we see some more of the crew. We have, again, I had to write these down. We had Mayweather, who's like basically the pilot, the doctor alien. He's Phlox, I think that's his name. That's how you pronounce his name. He was apparently like an exchange student from, you know, his planet, and that's what this whole thing is about. And Archer's like, hey, thanks for coming with us, and sorry for disrupting your, you know, your exchange program. And he's like, no, it's fine. I actually really like this. And he's like pulling out all these weird things, which I just thought was funny, because like his medicine kind of seems like, in terms of future medicine, similar to like medieval times. Like, I'm using leeches and maggots to heal you, basically. Because he's like, oh yeah, here's this. He like pulls up this cage, and he's like, yeah, here's this Galorian lizard thing, and it poops healing medicine. And Archer's is like, wait, what? It poops healing stuff? And he's like, oh yeah, you got to be open to this stuff. I mean, we're going into space, which again is valid, but it's just kind of funny because I know in like other series, it's just kind of like, hey, I'm the medical doctor, and he just kind of waves his hand or just puts some healing goop on them, and then just like, I'm better. So I just kind of find it funny that he's primarily like a leeches kind of guy. Like he's a plague doctor. But yeah, that's his character, and he's like super upbeat. He's just like, I like people because they're super upbeat, and I really like them. And like Archer leaves, and then he turns around. He's like, remember, be upbeat. And they like CGI his face to like do this like extra creepy smile. Like he just goes like this, like that. And I'm just like, ugh. And so they're getting ready to launch. And what ends up happening is the Vulcans send this one lady who hates basically everyone. But they send her, her name is T'Pol. And she's going to be the main science officer. And she's basically babysitting. And they're about to launch, and they keep introducing other characters. And one of the characters that I already know I'm going to hate is the character that crashed the little mini ship into the actual ship, Charles Tucker. I believe his name is Charles Tucker III, but he's also known as Trip. I just want to refer to him as Dick because he is an idiot, and everything he says, he sounds like a douche bro. Like he like hits on people, and he just says these like snide comments, and like you can totally tell he's like super racist, and he's just kind of like he thinks he knows better when again he's an idiot. So yeah, I have a feeling I'm not gonna like him at all. But hey, maybe he'll have it. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. I doubt it, but we'll see. So they start to go, and as they're going into like warp speed, they show like Trip and T'Pol and Archer have dinner, and apparently Vulcans don't touch their food at all. Like even when it's like food that it's kind of required that you use your hands. Like she's like trying to eat a breadstick, and they're like, hey, maybe you should use your hands and not a fork because it's not working. And she's like, I don't touch food. And she's like, you guys are so primitive because you eat meat and all this shit. And it's like, you're getting on their cases about like being ignorant about other species, but it's like they eat meat. Who cares? That's part of their species. So that's species. So you're kind of a hypocrite. And it's just these stupid comments about like basically humanity is too underdeveloped and Vulcans are way smarter, and snide comments back and forth, and it just kind of doesn't work. But they go back onto the bridge, and the communications officer, the woman that he had to basically bribe with the prospect of Klingon speech. Her name is Sato. Yeah, I don't really think I'm gonna like her either because she's kind of annoying, at least in this episode. Because like the majority of the episode, she's just kind of like every little thing just makes her like have a panic attack. Like I get like, oh wow, this is a new thing, and like you're flying at a gajillion miles per hour, so yeah, it's gonna be a little scary. But it's like literally like one little thing, and then she's just like, oh, what was that? Maybe, I don't know, guys. Maybe we should go back up to the place. Like that. Like that's her character so far. And she goes, like, she's freaking out, and they're coming out of like warp speed. And the doctor tells the captain that the Klingon guy is waking up from his surgery. Not his surgery, but just waking up basically from his coma. And so Archer and Sato, they go down and they're trying to communicate with him, and Sato is doing a terrible job. Like she is so stressed out. Like she's trying to get like the universal comm to work, but it doesn't work. Like the universal translator to work, but it's like not quite working, and Archer's like, okay, well, you need to try to communicate with him, and she the entire time she's just like, I don't like that, like that's what she is doing throughout the scene, and it's like really annoying. And then like there's the bit where the doctor Phlox where Phlox is just like, oh no, he's basically has a concussion, so like he's not gonna make sense, so just keep that in mind. And then Sato's like takes that and gets like super kind of smug, and she's like, well, that probably explains why he said your boots smell. And I'm just like you can't go from having a panic attack to being like, I know what I'm doing. So that happens, and then the power goes out for some reason, and it's revealed that those one aliens that were chasing the Klingon at the beginning of the episode, they've somehow snuck on the ship. And it's kind of hilarious because it kind of looks like a found footage scene. Like it's all in red, and you see them like crawling on the wall, and like one's like walking like this, like, ooh, and like turning around to the camera to look at it for whatever reason. And I just found that funny. And they go into the med lab, and they're like, they can like apparently camouflage themselves like chameleons. And like everyone's kind of like freaking out, going like, where are they? And then for some reason they like decloak, they become invisible. Like a few of them like kind of pop out and are just like, hey, I'm here, guys. I don't want to make it unfair, basically. And I just thought that was stupid. And then it got funny because like it kind of looks like a game of flashlight tag, because they're like, they have phasers, or I guess at this point they're just like general blasters, because we later on we'll see a phaser, but there's just general blasters. But they just have like their flashlights, so the entire time they're just like flashlight tag. And then out of nowhere, like one of the aliens is on top of the ceiling and then falls from the ceiling on top of the Klingon, and just goes like that. And then the lights come on like a second later after that, and the Klingon is gone. He's just gone. Like somehow they got him within 10 nanoseconds. Maybe they got beamed out of there. Like that's the only thing I can think of might have happened to explain that. I just kind of would have found that hilarious if it's just like, no, the guy has like the Klingon on his back running, just like kind of thing. But yeah, they've lost the Klingon already, and the Vulcan lady, T'Pol is just like, yeah, no, I think I'm gonna pull the plug on this one, guys. Like, we've kind of failed already. Like, this is our first outing, and we had one job, which was to get the Klingon home, and we already screwed that up. So they end up going, and what ends up happening is Archer is just like, no, we're gonna get him back. Like, this mission isn't over until it's over, damn it. And it's then revealed that the aliens that have the I keep wanting to calling them Vulcans, but they're not Vulcans, they're Klingons. They have the Klingon, and they like, I guess, drugged him up and are like asking him all these questions, and they're like, hey, you know, what did you get? Why did you come to this one place? And he goes like, oh, like, I don't know. Like, I didn't get anything. I don't know anything. And they're like, are you sure he's telling the truth? And they're like, yeah. And then he reveals that there's this, he went and saw this one representative called, what was her name? It was not Savol. No, not Silky, sorry. The Vulcan, stuff, Savol. Silky. I keep finding Sato. Okay, I'm pretty sure it was like Seraph or Sarah, something like that. But he says that he met with her and she didn't give him anything, and then the main bad alien guy goes to find her, and then it's revealed that one, I find it also funny that Archer brought his dog. Like, he has this dog named Porthos, and he has it. It's like this little beagle, and I'm just like, why do you have a dog with you on this ambassador trip? Like, that's such a stupid idea. Like, if you're bringing a pet, it should be like something that's going to be in the house, or not the house, on the ship the entire time. Like, it's like, oh, it's a fish. Like, that would be like, I think, the only acceptable pet to bring on a type of mission like this, because like, what if the aliens are allergic to dogs? What if the dog offends the aliens? Like, there's so many what if the dog explodes because you went through a certain blah blah blah? Like, or it just freaks out in general. It's like, there's so many things that could go wrong with bringing a dog. You would think that the higher ups would be like, no, you're not bringing your dog, you idiot. Like, no. But no, he brought Porthos, and the Vulcans apparently have a strong sense of smell. So T'Pol hates it, basically, because it stanks. But it's also revealed that the Vulcans withheld information and kind of been withholding information from the humans, and they reveal that there's like this Andromenous sector, and like they go to like Andromenous 10, I believe it's called. And it's basically like Mos Eisley from Star Wars, but it kind of looks like, I'm trying to think of a good descriptor, but it's kind of like a generic 90s action movie factory, kind of like, where they go into like a factory and it's just like, it looks like every factory in those, like Alien or Terminator or what have you, where it's just kind of like, yeah, it's a different setting technically, but it looks like generic factory. And they go there, and before they even go, the doctor, Phlox, tells them, hey, like, whatever you do, don't have sex with anything. And the next scene basically shows Mayweather, the pilot, and what's his name again? Malcolm Reed is the Malcolm Reed is the chief security officer, which I did not realize until I basically looked it up, because I needed to see. I was like, what was his name? And it was like, oh, he's the chief security officer. And I'm like, he's the chief security officer? He does nothing. Like, he's kind of a wimp. Like, I would peg him as like just kind of a generic. I thought that Trip was the security officer, and that would make a little bit more sense, because he's kind of buffer and he's kind of dumb and kind of brash. So it's like, I could see that in a security officer, but nope. Trip is the engineer. He's the chief engineer. He's an idiot, but he's our engineer. And Malcolm Reed is our security officer, and he doesn't do anything. But I'm sorry. He does one thing. Him and Mayweather go to a strip club right after they were told, do not have sex with anything because it could end badly. So they go to a strip club, and they basically meet not Twi'leks that are eating butterflies like lizards, and that's apparently hot. Like, they just go like that and eat butterflies out of the air, and they're like so entranced by this. Like, Mayweather less so. Like, he's just kind of like, yeah, this is a thing, because he established that he was kind of like on these, as a kid he grew up on these like these shipping ships that, so he was like, he went around the galaxy basically all his life up to that point, so he's kind of like more universally, not worldly, but universally, so he kind of knows things. But like, Malcolm is just like, bears, and like this alien guy who's right in the middle of them are just like, hey, I can let you meet them one-on-one if you like. And Malcolm is just like, well, I mean, we are here. Well, something about them eating a butterfly really turns me on. But Mayweather's just like, no, we gotta go. Like, we have things to do. And then it shows T'Pol and Trip, and they're just kind of walking around the space station. It's not really a space station. It's just a station, I guess. Not Mos Eisley. They're walking around it, and Trip is just kind of making an asshole of himself because he keeps like walking around and seeing things. Like, he sees this thing behind like a closed door, and you don't know what's exactly going on. Like, it kind of sounds like it could be an issue or, people having sex, but, either way. And T'Pol has to come up and be like, hey, like, don't get involved because you can get us into hot water and we all die. And she goes into this one room, and then, like, out of the room, she's talking to this one guy, and then outside of the room, Trip is seeing this kid, like, on a ventilator thing, and his mom is, like, routinely, like, taking off the ventilator. Like, she's, like, putting it on, and she's like, he's like, and then she takes it off, and then he's, like, having kind of issues breathing. It's kind of like he has asthma. And he's getting, like, really angry about this, and I'm like, why are you getting angry about this? Like, you can see the mother is concerned. Like, she's not doing it for fun, like, you suck, kid, I hate you, kind of thing. It's just like, no, she's like holding the child and was like deeply concerned as she's doing this. So it's like, I took it as it's basically like an inhaler, but apparently was it? And Trip is just like, how dare you, kind of thing. And T'Pol comes out, and like literally as she comes out, Trip just kind of loses it, goes like, how dare you do that to that child? Ugh. And T'Pol's like, he breathes like this specific thing as a child, and they have to like wean him off of that, and that's what she is doing. And he's just like, nuh-uh, like, I don't think that's the case. Like, this clearly concerned mother was just torturing her child because I'm Trip, and I know better. And T'Pol points out, like, no, you're just kind of an idiot. And then they go, Archer and Sato go into this one sector to try to find, like, clues to where the Klingon is, and the Klingon's name is, Clang. It's Clang, and every time I hear his name, I just kind of want to go clang, clang, clang with the trolley. So there's like clang, and I'm like clang, clang, clang. But they're like, hey, we're looking for clues, and they go to this one sector, which looks like every other sector, and then the aliens show up and attack them. And again, Sato the entire time is just basically like, I'm scared. It's like, why did you bring her? Like, I get that she's a communications officer, but like, couldn't you just had her on a comm link? Because it seems like she is not, she's not ready for field work. But they end up getting captured by the aliens. And what's kind of funny too is that everyone else got captured as well off screen. Like Trip and T'Pol also got captured while Archer and Sato were getting captured. I just kind of thought, I'm like, wait, when did that happen? But they get captured, and then they take Archer, and he goes and meets Seraph, and she's like human looking, and of course she walks up to him, and she's just like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, and he's like really sweaty. Like, I thought that was funny too, because he's just like pouring sweat. And he's just like, oh, you're like, who are you? And I'm like, what's your dealio? And she's like, well, I don't know if I can trust you. So, and then she gets up and kisses him like instantly. It's like, yep, of course. Like, yeah, of course she did that. And she then backs away, and then she like turns into like the other aliens who look like, again, like, cream of corn. And Archer just goes like, that's never happened to me before. I was like, ugh. But it's revealed that she is part of this like splinter group from the other aliens, and the aliens are called let's see here, Solbian, Solubian, Solubian, something like that. Solbian. I'm gonna call them Solbians. But that's the race, and it's revealed that like the race has become like obsessed with like improving themselves, like evolutionary wise. And this is kind of also in a previous scene mentioned by Phlox, who like is dissecting one of the aliens that they killed during the med bay scuffle. And he's like, oh yeah, like these guys have been mutated and like genetically engineered to like the nth degree. Like they are technically the species, but this is not like a normal one at all. And what has happened is like there's this splinter group that's like, no, this is going way too far, and then there's the main group who's just like, no, we want to like become perfect, more or less. And and then she also reveals that the way they're getting like advanced is that they're being directed through a temporal cold war. That's what they call it. And Archer goes like, what the hell is a temporal cold war? And she goes, they are being advised by someone from the future. Yep. That's what we're going with. And the advisor has been telling them to attack Klingon settlements and kind of blame other Klingons to make them have like a civil war, more or less. And the reason why they need Klang back to the home planet is to give a message to show that it's not other Klingons, it's the Solbians. And literally right after she's done explaining it, the main group of Solbians come in and start attacking everyone. And they all escape, but Sarah, it doesn't matter that I don't know her name because she dies. She literally gets shot and killed. She gets killed. And what ends up happening after that is like they go to the top of the structure, and Mayweather and Malcolm are already there in the ship, like the little med bay ship thing. Not med bay, but like the shuttle. And they're just kind of like, oh yeah, we're just kind of in here. Like, why aren't you looking for them? Like you clearly lost contact with them for a while, so why would you leave them? Like, why? You're just like, I guess we're just gonna hang out here. But they get back into the ship, the shuttle, and Archer gets shot, and T'Pol takes command. She just kind of more or less just goes like, I'm in command. And of course this makes Trip pissed off because he's just like, why are you in command? It's because she's the main science officer and she's next in command. Also, I'm pretty sure if anyone else took command out of you guys, you would all die. So they go back to the Enterprise, and then we have a completely ridiculous, needless, not shower scene. It's revealed that Trip and T'Pol had these spores on their body. Like no one else had it except for them because they're the sexiest people. And the Dr. Phlox just says like, hey, you need to put on this cream before you can come back into the general public to get rid of these spores. And they basically all but get naked. Like T'Pol has like this midriff shirt that's just like barely covering her boobs, and she's not wearing a bra, and she's just wearing panties, and Trip is just wearing his boxer shorts, and it's just like, guys, come on. And like they're arguing as they're rubbing cream on each other. Like they literally are rubbing cream on each other's bodies. Like she's like, turn around, and she's like rubbing his back, and the back of his thighs. And I also found it funny too because they're like putting the cream on their ears, and I'm just like, you guys could have reached those yourself. I get the back, like your back, but not the back of your legs and your ears. Like, do your arms not go back that far? So I just thought that was funny, and it's just clearly a scene just to be like, hey guys, not nudity, basically. Like, ooh, sexy. Mm. So they get, and Trip is pissed because she's the acting commander, which lasts 10 seconds because they go out and Archer has a leech on him. Like, I'm pretty sure they literally call it a like cerulean leech or something. And Phlox tells him like, hey, thanks for I sedated you and I put on this leech and you're healing up nice. Again, I just kind of find that funny that it's just like, nope, not a cream or a medicine or a shot, just leeches. But he goes, he gets up, Archer gets up, and then everyone else comes in and he's like, oh, I guess we're going back to Earth because he figured that T'Pol was just going to be like, no, we're going home. Like, this has gone foobar. But apparently she's just like, no, we're gonna go after Klang. So they go and they try to find where Klang is, and they're able to get a reading on him. And they go to this one planet, and it's revealed that the space station that the Salubian commander guy was talking in that weird room is made up of a crap ton of little ships, which seems like a huge design flaw. But they go there, they're able to really easily sneak in, and it just also just reiterates how worthless Trip is, because the way they sneak in is they get a ship from one of the Salubians, and Mayweather is showing him, hey, this is how you use the ship, and he doesn't know how to do it at all. He's just he's like, okay, where's the navigation? He's just like, there, and he's like, no, it's here, and he's like, I'll wing it. And Archer even knows looks like he knows how to fly it better, and I'm just like, why are you bringing Trip? He clearly doesn't know how to do this, and he's going to be a liability. But there's and even Mayweather is just like, hey, why don't you just take me? And he's like, well, I need you on the ship to fly, the main ship. So I got to take Trip, because I don't got a choice, apparently. So Trip and Archer get to the Citadel, and this is where they get the phasers. Malcolm comes in. He's like, hey, before you guys go, here's the new model of phaser. Buy the toy. And he's like, there's a stun option and a kill option. And they go onto the ship, and one of the Salubians come out, and Archer shoots him, and he goes well, I guess the stun is working. And I'm like, how do you know? How do you know which setting is which? I thought it was different. Whatever. Apparently he just knew that it worked. He's like, how do you know it just stunned him? What happens if it totally killed him? You don't know. He fell on the ground, and you're 6 feet away. You're just like, oh, he's stunned. Whatever. That's what I'm going to tell myself. But they find Klang. They save him. And they go out. And I don't remember why. Maybe I just, for 10 milliseconds, wasn't paying attention. But, Archer stays behind while Trip and Klang escape. And they make it back to the Enterprise, and again, T'Pol takes command, and she's like, hey, we're going to get the hell out of here because, we've got Klang, it's time to go. And Trip is like, well, what about Archer? And she's like, we can't get him back. That's not really an option, or we're all going to die. And of course, Trip gets mad again, and is just like, oh, but Archer, guys. And then Archer's just again, I don't know why he's there. He's just kind of I'm guessing he's there to figure out exactly what their plan is. And he ends up making it to the room with the weird after images effect thing. And this is where they're getting their messages from the future. And the main alien bad guy, he comes in and he's invisible. And his name is Silky. Silic. Let's go with Silic. Silic. He comes in and he's just like, oh, like you can't shoot your gun in here. That would be bad. And then it's kind of hilarious because he's invisible and he's going to let Archer go. He's like, you can just leave. Like, I just don't want you in this room. And Archer's just like, no, like, I'm going to take you down because raisins. And they get into a scuffle, and it's kind of hilarious because Silic just runs up to him, like, decloaks and just pushes him, just like, and that causes Archer to fall, and his phaser goes out of his hand. And then Silic picks up the phaser and points it at him and goes like, oh, I was going to let you go for really reals, but now I guess that's not an option. And he shoots it, even though he said, don't shoot the gun because it's bad in this room. And we see why it's bad in this room, because he shoots the gun. And when he shoots the gun, I guess it goes way slower for some reason. Like, the shot goes slower to the point that Archer can literally just go like, ooh. And so he completely misses him. And they have this stupid scuffle, and then the Enterprise comes back, and apparently T'Pol's just like, yeah, I guess we'll go save the idiot. And they go back, and they use the teleporter to bring back Archer, like, in mid-run. And they're like, oh, hey, we got you back. Good thing you didn't, like, become inside out, essentially. But they get out. They fly back to the Klingon homeworld, and Klang comes in and he's like, apparently he says that he's that he wants to die because he's dishonored everyone. But then, like, I guess the leader dude walks up with a knife and cuts his hand. And I found this funny too, because like the room they're in is just kind of like a generic like war council room. Like, it's just a table and just like nothing else. It's just a big table. But then, like, they cut his hand, Klang's hand, and they grab this like little vial, and then he takes the one Klingon takes the blood over, and off to the side is this like gene decoder. Like, it's just this super primitive tribal war room, and off to the left is gene sequencer. You know, every war room needs one of those. I just found that funny, and he puts in the blood, and like it's revealed that like the message from Sarah was encoded in his blood, and that was the message, and that's why he didn't know what the message was, and that she didn't give him anything, basically. And then the main Klingon leader walks up to Archer, and it's funny too, because Archer and Sato are in the room, but no one really acknowledges them. It's just like they just focus on Klang, and this is just not like, who are they or whatever. They're just kind of like, oh, you're here, cool. I guess maybe they were made aware that they were going to be there a little bit earlier, but I still think they would have been like, you know, what's the meaning of this kind of thing? But they walk up to Archer, and he holds up the knife and just says something, and he goes like to Sato, he just says like, oh, I assume that was like basically thank you, right? And she's like, no, they don't really have a thank you. You don't really want to know what he said. He's like, oh, okay. So they go back to the ship, and they're about to go home, and then they get like further orders from like Starfleet at this point. And they say that like don't come home, just keep doing your mission and like explore, you know, the final frontier kind of thing. And T'Pol is like, oh, I thought you guys were gonna drop me off, but I'll stay on. And they're like, okay, cool, like this is great, like. And Archer's just like, I guess I'll have to get rid of my prejudice against Vulcans. And like throughout the show, they keep saying like, oh, you're showing emotions, but they're using examples that aren't really emotions. Like he's like, oh, like Trip one point says like, "Oh, you're showing loyalty. That's an emotion," and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not a emotion. Like, I've never heard of the emotion of loyalty. I think that's just you can use your brain. Like that's just a basic action, not an emotion. I mean, I could be wrong, but I just found that stupid. But she decides to stay on as the science officer, and they're like, "All right, let's go. Let's go exploring." And that's the end of the episode. And was that quite the end of the episode? There's like a couple of flashbacks to Archer's dad, who like they're kind of pissed off because like the Vulcans kept things from him for so long that he couldn't live to see his spaceship take off. So they're like really mad about that. And like there's this one scene where it's a flashback and it shows him with little Archer and he's like flying the stupid spaceship model and he's just like, "Oh, I can't control it, Dad." And the dad's like, "You can't be afraid of the wind. Just go with the flow." And this comes back at the very end of the episode where Mayweather is like, "Hey, like the destination we are going to, there's an ion storm. If we go the fastest route, should we just go around it?" And Archer goes like, "No, you can't be afraid of the wind. Just go with the flow." And I'm just thinking like, that's not the wind. That's an ion storm. Like that'll potentially kill you. You idiot. But yeah, that was the first technically 2 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise. Yeah, no, I have a feeling this is going to be kind of a dumpster fire of a show, but I kind of like, I like that because I think it'll be kind of entertaining. Like it's not going to be, it's going to feel dated, but it's not going to be like the other shows where it's like, oh, isn't that kind of quaint that they thought this was going to be a thing, but it wasn't, and all this other stuff. And yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to have fun with it. I'm hoping it's not just going to be a complete and utter drag, but I could be wrong. But yeah, that was my experience with the first episode. Like I said, I am not a Star Trek fan at all. I'm going into this blind, and it is going to be kind of fun to see, what happens. And I hope you stay along and join me with this rough ride in these rough rants. I might add video to these, like clips to show like what I am saying to a degree. It just kind of depends. I just kind of like ranting and explaining what happens in the episode. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's just going to be a matter of what I like to do because it's my show. But yeah, if you like this, I'm going to make other rant videos about just kind of other things. Like I'm not just going to specifically focus on Enterprise. It's going to be about like, I'm also going to do, various other shows, some other, some movies, general things and, whatnot. But yeah, if you like this, please like and subscribe and comment below. Let me know what you think of Enterprise. What do you think of my deluded ramblings? What I can do to, maybe improve some stuff. Just yeah, let me know. And have a great day. Bye.